opens door to youth free movement deal with Spain. Published by the Telegraph. Talks with Pedro Sanchez raise concerns PM may be preparing to make concessions to EU. Sir Keir Starmer discussed a free movement deal for young people with the Spanish Prime Minister earlier this month, the Telegraph can reveal. Pedro Sanchez made the case for a UK-Spain agreement allowing Spanish young people to live in the UK in private talks with the Prime Minister at Blenheim Palace on July 18. Sir Keir is understood not to have rejected the proposal and said he would consider it, along with other discussion points. His private openness to the idea is in contrast with his public position in April, when Labour rejected an EU-wide youth mobility deal floated by Brussels. The discussions have fueled concerns over concessions the Prime Minister is prepared to give the EU in his drive to reset relations with Europe, with James Cleverly, the Shadow Home Secretary, accusing Sir Keir of a U-turn. The UK already has a youth mobility scheme visa that allows people from 10 countries including Australia, New Zealand and Canada to study or work here for up to 2 years. While EU nations are not part of the scheme, the question of whether a post-Brexit deal can be struck has risen up the political agenda. In April, the European Commission offered a pact that would make it easier for British people aged 18 to 30 to live and study in the EU and vice versa. The Tory government at the time rejected the offer, as did Labour. A spokesman said there were no plans for a youth mobility scheme, and the Labour manifesto promised no return to freedom of movement. A bilateral deal with Spain would not strictly break that manifesto promise, even if it did allow the free movement of young people between the two countries. Such deals could help Labour deliver improved economic growth, said to be the party's top priority in office. A government spokesman played down the idea, saying, "We have been clear that we won't rejoin the single market, customs union or reintroduce freedom of movement, and we are not considering a youth mobility scheme." Germany's ambassador to the UK suggested last week that relaxing border rules for younger people would help Sir Keir renegotiate the UK's post-Brexit deal. Miguel Berger told Politico that a new treaty should include areas which are in the common interest, such as a youth mobility scheme. However, the government would have to navigate the backlash from some Brexiteers who oppose any closer ties with the EU. Mr. Cleverly, who is running to be the next Conservative leader, said, "Labour said they wanted to bring migration down and ruled out a youth mobility scheme with the EU during the election. Surprise, surprise, the U-turn has started already. As we have already seen ministers advocating relaxing visa rules, this should not shock anybody. But the British people have been betrayed once again by Starmer." Political pressure has been growing on the left for action over freedom of movement. The Liberal Democrat election manifesto called for the EU to be allowed to join the UK's youth mobility scheme. Sir Keir was once a strong believer in full free movement, which allows any EU citizen to move to another state in the bloc. Brexit means the UK has been outside the system since February 2020. When Sir Keir ran for the Labour leadership that year, he argued for the readoption of free movement with the EU. He said, "I want people in this country to be able to go and work abroad, in Europe. And I want people in Europe to be able to come and work here. I want families to be able to live together, whether that's in Europe or here." After winning the leadership, he abandoned the position. Splits in the EU. Mr. Sanchez's decision to raise the idea, at a meeting of the European political community, suggests he believes the Prime Minister could be open to the proposal. The conversation also hints of splits within the EU. One reason the European Commission was said to have offered an EU-wide deal is it had detected some European capitals talking to London directly about striking their own bilateral deals. Agreeing direct deals with similar-sized economies rather than all EU countries could appeal to the Labour government, as it would be a smaller step of re-engagement with the bloc and so potentially easier to sell politically. It could also be argued that the chance of low-skilled foreign workers moving en masse to the UK would be minimised in such individual deals, if both countries have similar average wages. A senior government source cautioned against over-interpreting Sir Keir's openness to the idea, saying he may have been being polite as he met world leaders for the first time.